2 summers ago in Edmonton, at a bus stop, Jamal Wheeler stabbed and killed Rukanisha Nakunda Batwar. Nakunda, as he is known to his friends and family, was a stranger to Wheeler. Wheeler, unprovoked, stabbed Nakunda 1 time in the chest and killed him. Let him die in the middle of the street in the middle of the day. It was a horrific crime. And on Monday, in a federal court in Edmonton, Wheeler was sentenced to just 7 years in prison. And with the time he has spent in jail awaiting trial and sentencing, he'll probably be out in 4.5. That sounds like a travesty of justice. It sounds like an activist judge on a crusade to free a violent criminal. Well, frankly, the Crown attorneys only asked for 7 to 9 years, the defense for 6 years. So the judge wasn't being particularly activist. He was acting on the Crown's request. It still seems like a travesty of justice. But what is really tragic in this, what is really awful, is the fact that Wheeler was out on bail at the time he committed his crime. And if our bail laws in Canada were not so lenient, maybe Wheeler wouldn't have been out of jail to kill Nakunda. Maybe Nakunda would still be alive. Maybe the problem is not the fact that the judge sentenced Wheeler to 7 years for killing Nakunda. Maybe the problem is that the Liberals in 2019 changed the bail law so that they are so lax, almost no one who is suspected of a crime spends any time in jail awaiting their trial. Wheeler, for instance, had a long history of property and violent crime. This was his 3rd unprovoked attack on someone at a transit station. The 3rd one, and yet he's still out on bail. Now, he has a tragic history. I get that. And one of the reasons that his sentence was so lenient is he has a Glad You report, which an awful lot of people with an Indigenous heritage get these days when they're being tried, that says they grew up in horrible circumstances. His father was a drug dealer, and his mother allegedly introduced him to drug addiction. So Wheeler didn't have a lot of chance to begin with. But Nakunda didn't either. Nakunda didn't deserve to die because our system focuses on the criminal rather than the victim. It focuses on the criminal's rough past and not the loss of life by the victim. Wheeler should never have been out of jail at the time he attacked Nakunda. If you have already at least twice, at random and unprovoked, attack people on the transit system, A, what are you doing living in a tent next to a transit station? And B, what are you doing out of jail in the first place? This is ridiculous. If the Liberals want to get serious about crime, and the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, says he wants to be serious, then what they have to do is change the bail laws so that more people, particularly people who have long histories of violent behavior, are incarcerated while they wait to go to trial. It doesn't seem like rocket surgery to me to have to say this. And I don't think most people listening think it's all that astonishing or astounding to suggest if you have a long history of violent behavior and you're accused of another violent crime, you get to stay in jail until there is a trial. Because there are far too many cases. Almost half of murders committed in Canada in the last 10 years have been committed by people who are out on bail or some other kind of mandatory release. They're violent. That's what they do. And we can work on solutions. We can talk about going in for people like Wheeler and finding ways of helping them deal with their demons. But in the meantime, the bail laws have to be changed so ordinary Canadians are protected from violence by the people the system are coddling. For Post Media, I'm Lorne Gunter.